All right, we're on record for a review in this court case file this morning. May I have the names of our participants, please?
Lee Heiss, lawyer, guardian ad litem.
Good morning, Nastasia Thomas, counsel for the department. Ms. Cruz.
Good morning, Miss Angela Cruz, foster care worker, Hands Across the Water.
Michael Brooks, I represent the father, Caleb Miller. Caleb Miller.
Michael McFarland, representing mother.
William Burgess. Thank you. Ms. Heiss.
Thank you, Your Honor. We scheduled several visits with the children, and this family is so busy. We didn't end up seeing each other face to face. But so I would request that the court, if the hearing is to go forward today, I requested the children come to the office within the next 2 weeks for an appointment, and I know that's really inconvenient. I've offered evening times, but in the next 2 weeks, I think I have to. This is the second visit I haven't been able to see the kids for. So anyway, besides that, you know, mother and I have been in contact, and we all went to mediation. So the investigation has gone on. The mediation report that you can see, the court report that you can see, we've been in contact. The caseworker gave me an extra appointment just to talk through what she sees, what I see, and coming to. So I think the risk at this point is that we need one more review period. I agree with the agency. You know, we all thought we could close right now, but some things have come up, some CPS reports that, you know, it's hard to tell. There's bruises on the children, and but yet CPS finds that they're generally within the play life of the child. Dad takes the kids to Bone Pool. I did creep on that a little bit. Disgusting, I know, but you know, really plays with the children in the water. And after they weren't available for me on August 1st, because they were with dad. So, but you know, one of the CPS reports was that one kid was on top of the car. I get that that's generally not a good idea, but this mom and dad are dealing with 5 children at one time and getting everybody in car seats and all that kind of stuff. So going forward, I think that in this review period, we need to smooth out dad's visits. I think that when we are done helping the family, and FRP was at the house helping mom. She's very receptive. I wish we could close for the family, but I just don't think we're ready. Smooth out the visits for dad. You know, I see a conflict between what mom wants and what dad wants. You know, traditionally kids go every other weekend to the visiting parent, and I think mom is open to that. But dad has a new person in his life that has stabilized things for him, even though he's out of state. You know, we're not making a big issue that we do sometimes because things are stabilizing. But anyway, dad wants to have, I think, something like 3 kids one weekend and then 2 kids the next weekend. I really love a lot about that. One thing that makes me crazy is I don't know how anybody's going to transport 5 kids plus dad doesn't have a driver's license, but his support person does. I don't know how that happens in a car. Mom makes it work. And at this point, mom is delivering the kids to the visit, like at Bone Pool, and picking them up. But there's a real barrier to dad having all 5 kids. However, I understand mom's point of view, which is I want every other weekend to catch up on sanity, chores, work extra if she needs to, but anyway, so we have that issue. I think that we still need to iron out in the next review period. I feel like we keep putting our head in the sand and ignoring that, but I think this family could help that. As soon as FRP is finished in the home, the mom has moved to a house now, and so dad is in Ohio. I haven't seen their place yet, but the kids aren't visiting there anyway yet. So lots of progress. I really wish we could close it up, but I haven't visually seen the kids, and we have a little bit of services left, but a lot of successes, Judge, a lot of strengths, a lot of kids with a lot of needs. You know, in one of the CPS pictures of a bruise on a kid, you know, that child was still in diaper, and I thought to myself, well, they said it was this kid and I thought it was that kid, and I was all confused. But these kids still have accidents at night, so there is and need that support. There's so much work in raising these 5 wonderful, healthy, happy kids. Now they're all at school, so you have to add in all that drama of who said what to whom and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, lots of strengths in this family. I just don't think it's quite time to close it. And I know that's disappointing to everyone, but I do agree with the court report. Thank you.
Thank you. Testimony this morning, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Honor. If I may ask or inquire from the parents if there's anything in the court report that they would like to address, or if anything they would like to testify to.
Mr. Miller?
I think it's just what he did.
Says
My client does not.
this lady's doing a very good job.
No,
What?
I don't have anything to say.
Right.
Doesn't sound like either parent would like to testify this morning, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Honor. Then I'll call Ms. Angeli. Thank you.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good morning, Ms. Angeli. How are you today?
Good morning. I am under the weather. I didn't want to spread anything to anyone, so I'm connected through Zoom.
Well, thank you for
Thank
still
you.
joining us. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, as it relates to the court report, there were a couple of attachments that came in, I believe, yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so your original court report has, let me go back to the cover page here. The court report, community mental health with the cover, the court report and case service plans, a community health letter regarding one of the children, and then an unsigned mediation meeting report. And it looks like the documents yesterday then updated the mediation meeting report to have all of our signatures. And then there is a prevention plan, I believe, that was provided. Is that correct?
Yes, from FRP, that is the updated report from Family Reunification Services.
Okay. Your Honor, may I inquire with the court and of the attorneys if they have the two documents that were received yesterday?
That was the mediate, what was it again?
It
There
was
a
a,
signed
oh, sorry, go ahead.
mediation. It's okay. There's a signed mediation agreement. And then there's a updated prevention plan from FRP.
Have the mediation status report and that plan, two DHS 69s, the court report. I don't think I have the second thing that you referenced. Ms. Heiss?
I agree with the same thing, and the mediation report that I think Judge is referring to, mine isn't signed, and I heard you say there's a signed copy. You probably realize that FRP is here and could testify to any
Yes,
updates, but I'm looking, I don't see an email yesterday, but it probably went, so that's my update.
The court email did respond saying that it was received. I can forward it to everyone if that's okay. But if FRP is there, they can testify in regards to their report.
Can you, when you do your testifying, if you can summarize it too, we really rely on that too.
Judge, the email indicates that the juvenile court email address received it, and then it was also provided to Mr. Powell. So I don't know if it is available for the file, but with that, I can continue to question Ms. Cruz.
Okay, I'm tracking it down over here. Gentlemen, did you get those updates?
I don't think so, no. But, Your Honor,
Well, I'd have to go back through, we have about 200 pages, Your Honor.
yeah, there it is, Your Honor.
That's,
One submission.
okay, that's not what mine looks like. I have just simply the court report, a community mental health letter, single page, a copy of the unsigned mediation agreement, a copy of the signed mediation agreement, and again, a couple of DHS 69s, and a case report. That's what I can agree to receive. I don't know.
I have that.
My assistant is checking on the other update, so.
Okay. Okay, well, that's being checked on, Ms. Cruz. Other than the documents that were circulated yesterday, are there any updates or modifications to your court report that you'd like to make for the record?
No,
This is a unique case. There was a stipulated order to return the children home in July. Since the return home, are there any concerns about whether there remains a substantial risk of harm to the children's safety, physical or mental well-being while in the care of either of their parents?
I don't believe there is substantial harm for the children to not be able to remain under the care of Ms. Burgess. With the support of the whole team, FRP and myself, and Ms. Burgess's efforts with scrambling to get all of the kids' appointments done and school stuff and schedules and all of that, we've been able to manage. I think there have been some bumps on the road in terms of scheduling appointments. As Ms. Hayes stated, it has been the same with FRP and with myself, because trying to mix up 5 kids' schedules plus Ms. Burgess, plus their services, plus the additional visits that FRP and I have to do during the week. It has been a bit of a struggle. But Ms. Burgess has been able to overall maintain the children safe. There were 3 CPS complaints that came in during this reporting period. Only one was assigned for investigation and not substantiated, which was the one that Ms. Heiss reported about the bruise on one of the kids. That bruise was caused by 2 of the older kids fighting with each other. And Ms. Burgess reported that as soon as she, heard them fighting with each other, she separated them and had them do some time out. But it was a big bruise on the child. So this was communicated with FRP so that they could continue working with Ms. Burgess in the home with strategies on how to continue disciplining the children and maintaining line of sight supervision with them. Obviously, we also are conscious that it's 5 kids at the same time running around the house. So we continue to work on that with Ms. Burgess. The other 2 complaints were not assigned for investigation. And in terms of Mr. Miller, he has only, and the only thing that he's been able to progress this reporting period is transitioning to overnights, or at least being able to transition to overnights. I'm not sure if he was able to do one this past weekend. But other than that, he hasn't been doing mental health services. He moved to Ohio. He lost his license. He can't drive currently, so doesn't have his own transportation. He doesn't have employment. He's currently working on getting employment. So there's no evidence of income right now. So he is currently working on getting stabilized himself. So the only thing that has progressed from that side is to transition to overnights in the home that he's currently at with his partner that was assessed and approved to be able to do overnights. My recommendation is that we return in 60 days once FRP is done, which is in October. And once the kids have already started school and hopefully settled in well, and we are able to have a positive report on compliance. We just want to make sure that we cover all of the bases. When this case opened up, there was educational neglect and truancy was involved. There were a lot of missed days in school, so we just want to make sure that we support Ms. Bridges in this transition with the kids starting school, and managing all of those schedules at the same time. So that is about it in terms of an overview of what's been going on. We had the mediation meeting during our mediation meeting, it was a very long mediation meeting because it was a bit hard to get everyone in agreement and in the same page. However, unfortunately, when we did the mediation meeting, Mr. Miller
Honor,
was,
I'm gonna object, because anything that was said at mediation remains at mediation, is not brought out in any other proceeding.
Response, Ms. Thomas?
Yes, I can instruct Ms. Cruz that mediation is, the agreement itself can be incorporated, but the contents of the mediation itself remain confidential.
Thank you.
okay.
So thank you for giving us that update. And then I noticed in the report, Mr. Miller has warrants at this point in time.
Yes.
Are there any safety plans in place to ensure that in the event if he were ever arrested while caring for the children, that they are not left with improper care or supervision at that time?
In terms of official safety plans, we haven't had a meeting to discuss that. These warrants were something that came up during our last family team meeting. Mr. Miller has overall been communicating with me and Miss Burgess in terms of his whereabouts and updates. So he has canceled parenting times when he's had to go to court, or if there are things that are pending. He has canceled parenting times. He hasn't gone forward with anything when he has had to deal with court or stuff like that. So we haven't had any issues, as he's been proactive in that sense, at least with me.
Okay. Your report indicates that his live together partner, you've not been able to assess that home in Ohio. Is that correct?
We did assess it, I
okay.
believe last week.
And how can you give us an update on whether that's an appropriate place for parenting time?
Yes, it was approved. We had already run background checks on his partner too. Safety plans were put in place around that too. And the home is appropriate for overnights.
Okay. And generally, when we've talked, or when you've, I guess this case has been going on for a while, and so if FRP is out and foster care is out, does the family have natural supports to continue to support them in co-parenting, ensuring the children are attending appointments, ensuring the children go to school, ensuring the children have sufficient food or and continued stable housing?
They have each provided alternate caregivers. They each have their own supports. Mr. Miller has his mother and his partner. Miss Burgess has her mother and father. An additional alternate caregiver. She also has the support of Catherine Cobb, which I'm sure she will continue working with them, and they've been a great support system in a lot of senses, not only in housing wise, but mental health services, supplies for the kids and the home, security, a lot of things. I do think that Ms. Bridges has been able to establish support systems that will allow her to be successful.
And your report also reminds us that there was a hearing on the PPO to modify it to allow for contact for the exchange of parenting time. Is that something, because it seems like you're the one who's going to have the most information about how the parents interact, is that something that you would still recommend to the court today?
Well, I believe the PPO has expired.
Okay.
What we have in place is a court order that says that parents cannot have contact with each other. They have both stated that they feel comfortable doing the exchanges with each other directly. And in that sense, I think it would facilitate and make it easier on them to be able to do that directly. If the parents feel safe with doing exchanges directly, I support that. There have been no issues currently or recently between them.
And are there any other updates you'd like to give the court regarding the children or anything about the family?
Overall, the children have continued to receive mental health services. Ms. Burgess has maintained those appointments. We will be transitioning them to another mental health provider as their current mental health provider reports that they could benefit from switching. So we're working on that. We have been working on getting the kids enrolled in school. Fortunately, because the foster care case was still open, they were able to move forward with a couple of things faster. So hopefully the kids are on track to start the school year. Other than that, there are no other updates.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor. And if the court has received the additional documents from yesterday, I would ask the court to accept the court report with those documents. Thank you.
So the only additional thing I got was that FRP reunification update, which covers July 24th through August 22nd. I was also able to have another look at the attachments. The CMH letter on August 20th, which refers to the second oldest child, JM, appears to reference a CAFAS assessment, which should have been attached to the letter. So I didn't know if that was something also that just was overlooked, or maybe community mental health needs to send it along. Those are the two things that I see.
I
Also,
apologize. Sorry, I can send that. I apologize. I probably missed adding those from that letter.
and the Debbie Haynes, if you could make a copy of these two documents, one for each attorney, please.
2 documents, 3 copies of each.
Yes.
Is that the CMH letter you're talking about, Your Honor?
No, it's the signed mediation agreement and the
I have that.
FRP report.
So do I.
You have the FRP report?
I don't have the FR report, I'm just looking here.
It would have come in yesterday. Ms. Heiss?
I have all of the documents now and found it in a sub-file.
Well, objections to the court receiving the attachments as articulated by the court?
No, Your Honor.
Well, Your Honor, I would point out that there is a court rule in this court that said if you're going to submit a report that's more than 20 pages long, it has to be delivered by hand. I think you can see that's a tad more than 20 pages.
I don't know what you have, Mr. Brooks, because this is what mine looks like.
Well, I think they want to make sure I am inundated with all the information they can.
I don't have that.
I
I'll have to
no-
take that up with Ms. Thomas.
I have no objections.
No objection.
Ms. Heiss?
No objection.
Thank you. They are received as articulated by the court. Cross-examination of this witness, Mr. McFarland.
I do. You said that 2 of the incidents received of alleged abuse or neglect were not referred to an investigator. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I just received a message from Ms. Cruz that she's having connection issues, which appears to be so from her video.
I can wait till she rejoins us, Your Honor.
Okay. And Your Honor, if agreeable, I would call Ms. Zimmerman if she's available in the courtroom.
Ms. Zimmerman here? No.
Who's available for FRP?
I am Morgan Smith.
Morgan Smith.
Okay. Okay. I'll call Morgan Smith for just to provide a little update on FRP.
Come on up to our witness stand.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
There's a step there, be careful.
All right, there you are, Ms. Thomas. Proceed at will.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for joining us. Can you just briefly state your role or your title and where you are employed?
Yes, my title is team lead with Family Reunification Program through Orchards Children's Services.
And what is your responsibility as the team lead?
I work on therapeutic goals with the family. So currently with Ms. Burgess, we are working on healthy communication, healthy relationships, family bonding, and stress management.
And how would you generally describe progress towards those goals since FRP has been in place?
At this time, with our most recent report, we are at moderate progress for our family bonding and stress management goal. We are at minimal progress for our first goal of healthy relationships and communication, but generally within the first 2 months of service, we are at around minimal progress just due to building rapport with the family and working on other goals and needs.
Can you help just give us a highlight of all of the services that FRP does provide to a family and sort of the level of involvement? Like, is it a weekly contact, a daily contact, and just sort of educate us on what exactly the family is receiving?
So we do meet with the family. There's 2 workers, me and then Ms. Zimmerman. She is our family worker. We both meet with her once a week. We both have different visits with her. So I meet with Ms. Burgess for 1 hour a week to work on goals, and Ms. Zimmerman meets with her for 2 hours a week to work on her side of goals. And her goals are concrete goals, and those are positive parenting and budgeting.
And generally, with being in the home, do you have any concerns about the children's safety or well-being?
We have no observable concerns for their safety at this time.
And Ms. Cruz had testified it's anticipated FRP would remain in place until October. Is that accurate?
That would be the full 4 months of our program. We are able to close out early if we hit substantial goal progress before those 4 months, but the full 4 months would be at the end of October.
Okay. And how does FRP monitor or determine progress towards goals?
We have action steps for our goals. So if we're hitting those action steps, we also are in communication with the referring worker, so Ms. Angeli, to see what her opinion is on us having an early case closure. But once we hit all of those action steps, and we have no observable concerns within the home or with Ms. Burgess, that would lead to substantial goal progress.
Wonderful. Is there anything that you would like the court to know based on what you've heard today or what you know about the family?
Yes, Ms. Burgess has been great to work with. She's very active and engaged during our visit times. It can be chaotic with 5 children, but she is very attentive to their needs. She utilizes gentle parenting. She really gets on their level and communicates with them in a positive way. And she did inform me that they are enrolled in school and that they have started this week and that their morning routines have been going well.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions of Ms. Smith at this time. Thank you.
Cross-examination, Mr. McFarland.
FRP is Family Reunification Planning, am I correct?
Family Reunification Program.
Program, okay. And are you prepaid for your services or do you bill as you go?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Let me ask maybe a different way. If the court were to close this case today, would this program still remain in effect until its completion in October?
No, if the court closes out, our services immediately close out as well.
Once again, nothing in your report indicates a safety concern. I think it's what you testified for the kids, correct?
We do have a safety plan in place for appropriate supervision, but we have had no observable concerns regarding that plan.
Thank you. Nothing further.
You working at all with Caleb Miller?
We are not.
Questions, Mr. Brooks?
No, Your Honor, but I will advise the court that having received a copy of this, it is part of what I already have.
Thank you.
No questions.
I apologize for the extra paper.
All I'm saying is, I don't know if everybody's listening to what your rules are. I listen.
That's fair. All right, Ms. Hikes, any questions for this witness?
Just briefly, I noticed in your notes that sometimes mom has to end sessions early due to logistics of getting kids to and from visits. Is that accurate?
In the first month of services, we did have some scheduling conflicts, but recently, like about the past month, we haven't had any concerns.
And your notes seem to say that it's pretty normal for a busy family like this to have those kinds of interruptions in services. Is that accurate?
Yes, we do have families who have to get to appointments, things like that. So sometimes visits do need to be cut short. If we can, we do try to reschedule to make up that missed time.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Any redirect? Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor, and Miss Cruz is back in the waiting room, but I have no questions of Miss Smith.
Any recross, Mr. McFarland?
No, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. All right, looks like we have Ms. Cruz back with us. Can you hear us all right, Ms. Cruz?
Yes, but now my camera for some reason is not wanting to work. I'm so sorry.
I can give you an invitation. Apparently I can't.
I don't mind, no, video, Your Honor, it's a stronger audio.
Very good. It's yours is not the only one being funky today, so.
I'm sorry, it's blocked. It's not letting me turn it on.
Yeah, usually I can send you an invitation for that too, but I can't for whatever reason. So.
Well, I guess I could set my chair, well, she maybe can see me, I don't know.
You know, this woman is sick. Why don't we get on with it so we can let her go?
I'm just gonna remind you, Ms. Cruz, you remain under oath.
Okay.
I did not know she was up. Okay. What are the two warrants that the warrants that Mr. Burgess has for his arrest? What are those for?
Mr. Miller?
I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, yes.
He stated that he had a couple of car tickets that he had not paid.
Well, have you actually researched what is out there as far as warrants?
I currently don't have an updated report.
Okay. What is my understanding is that you said there were 3 complaints of abuse and or neglect. 2 of them were not assigned to somebody. What's the significance of not being assigned to an investigator?
When it's not assigned for investigation, it's that DHS or CPS determines that it doesn't require an investigator to it doesn't meet the level of severity for an investigator to go into the home and initiate a whole investigation. So they refer that to foster care, which is me, to just talk with the family and safety plan with them.
And you gave her, my understanding is that now the agency provides written safety plans as other workers have testified. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, so she has a written safety plan you provided, Ms. Burgess, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And lastly, the one complaint which was investigated, there is no substantiation of abuse or neglect, correct?
That's correct.
Nothing further?
Mr. Brooks?
No questions.
Ms. Heiss?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question, Ms. Cruz. So there's a lot of things in the report that indicate Mr. Miller is not adhering to the things that we need him to do in order to allow for safe parenting time, frankly. He's not engaged in his mental health services. He's lost his job. He's not taking his mental health medications. These are a lot of things that were in place at the outset of the case that he had made some progress on, and we were supportive of that in expanding visitation. But I have concerns, especially given the psychological evaluation that you've cited yourself, which suggests the low frustration tolerance, which would put him in a position to be prone to increasing levels of coercive discipline as stress increases. In other words, his child abuse potential inventory required him to address some of these issues in order to avoid physical discipline, which elevates the risk of harm associated with even visitation. So do you have concerns about that? Do your concerns echo my concerns? Like what's
So in
being done
terms,
in order to address that?
well, I've referred Mr. Miller several times to, restart mental health services as well participate of tranquil parenting. But in terms of parenting times, he hasn't shown any behaviors that are a concern in terms of safety of the children. Which is why we transitioned a while back to unsupervised. He hasn't shown, I've supervised a couple too after we transitioned to unsupervised. And he hasn't shown any behaviors that are a concern for the safety of the kids, nor the children have disclosed any situations that are unsafe between him and the children.
Was that while he was on his medications and in services or while he was off?
During both.
Okay. Thank you, that helps. Are there additional supportive visitation services that can be utilized for Mr. Miller in the upcoming review period?
He has been referred to tranquil parenting a lot of times. The provider has reached out and has not heard back from Mr. Miller. As of last week, the report is the same. She has not been able to establish communication with Mr. Miller. At this point, he's been in supportive visitation already 2 times and has completed the program.
Okay.
There really isn't anything else in Lenawee County other than probably through Orchard, some type of parenting education. But supportive visitation covered parenting education, like hands-on during parenting times.
Thank you. Questions based on my questions?
No,
No,
Briefly,
Oh,
Your
yeah.
Honor. Ms. Cruz, the element that isn't coming through is that Mr. Miller has the support of his mother, who had placement of the older 3 kids for the whole time the case was open, right?
Yes,
And mom accepts support from that person if she needs it, from Wendy Miller, right?
that's correct.
So the mediation agreement kind of anticipates that when the kids go to dad's house or goes for visits with dad, Wendy Miller might even be the point of transition for the kids. So mom might take the kids to Wendy Miller and then dad picks the children up from Wendy Miller to avoid conflict, right?
Well, Wendy Miller expressed that she didn't want to commit permanently to that. She currently doesn't want to commit to being that person, but she is in agreement of, if needed, she can provide support in that sense.
Right, but she also had like surgery this month.
Yes, she currently can't do that.
So that might have been a temporary barrier, but would you agree that Wendy Miller supports Caleb Miller in his parenting of these kids?
Yes,
And she's very reliable. She's had the kids, to school and all of their extra appointments. She did vacations while she had placement with the kids, and she supported reunification, right?
yes.
Okay, when you update your record regarding dad's warrant, are you seeing these, it looks to me like the general trend is dad had a job that required him to drive DoorDash or something, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And it looks like they started getting on, police started pulling him over in January, February, twice in May, and again in July, so that gig is kind of up now,
Yes.
correct? Yeah, so we kind of knew that he was had a career that was based on a car, and he didn't have a driver's license, so that's not a new change. That's just it's a new change that he stopped doing it, right?
Yes.
So he's unemployed. Now, he also left the trailer that he was living in, and he owes some money there. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but he has secure housing. He has a roof over his head with a new support person, Blanca, right?
Yes.
And she has children. You've looked into all her support really helps dad with the kids.
Yes.
So So those are elements that support dad, even though all he has been showing up to his visits. The children enjoy visits, correct?
That's correct.
And mom gets a break a minute with those visits. Oh,
Yes.
so maybe she works during those visits, Jeremiah has counseling, and have you checked with the counselor whether stopping visits with dad would dysregulate him or would be beneficial?
In terms of that particular child, he has recently expressed wanting to have one-on-ones with the parents. He's had some issues with wanting to stay at parenting times because I think he's a little bit overwhelmed with living with all the siblings at the same time now, and he's wanting some one-on-ones with the parents. In terms of parenting times, what the therapist has stated is that the kids really don't talk much about parenting time during their sessions openly.
When you have observed dad's visits, do you see what I see, like folding airplanes as an activity or swimming in the pool and dad being very active with the family? Is that your perception of visits?
Yes, I think he presents as really engaged with the children. He will sometimes come with ideas to have them all like play together. And he also joins and play with them, redirects them.
When he had his place in Clinton, I observed him to cook from scratch meals for the kids. Did you observe that?
Yes, he would in occasions cook too.
And it wasn't like opening cans and heating things, it was actual meals.
In occasions, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Any other witnesses today, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, last opportunity for witness testimony, Mr. McFarland.
My client would like to now testify briefly, Your Honor.
Sure. Okay, come on up to our witness
Watch
stand.
your
Ms.
head.
Burgess.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
How would you like me to address you today?
Oh, yeah.
Aaliyah, you told me it's okay for me to sign that stipulation that you guys worked out, the mediation stipulation. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, you're in agreement with that?
yes.
Okay. Do you want the case closed today?
That would be nice.
It sounds as though regarding the item and maybe the agency wants the completion of the family reunification plan, which would be end in October. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the program is definitely beneficial and I enjoy working with them. I didn't know until today that if it was to close out, that they would also be closed out.
Now that you know that, I guess what do you want? Do you want to, do you want the case to stay open so you can receive those additional services, or do you want it closed today? Guess what's your position?
I would really love to have the case closed. At the same time, it's kind of in between.
Fair enough. Do you feel safe with the mediation agreement and in light of the judge's concerns about father's, let's say, lack of compliance on some parts of his case service plan? Do you feel safe with the visitations as they are if the case were closed right now?
Yes.
You understand that you always have recourse to a parenting time schedule or to change something with the friend of the court through a referee hearing. You are aware of that, correct?
Yes.
Anything else? Oh, there were some small things that you were telling me as we were going on that were inaccurate. Do you think they rise to the level that you want to explain anything to the court today?
Yes.
Okay.
So with the complaints with the kids, the
my two oldest, CM and JM, they were fighting. They got into a fight. I broke them up. I stepped upstairs to go turn the air conditioner on, came back downstairs, they were fighting again and separated them again. After that, they had went to stay the night with their grandma Wendy, and I hadn't even seen the bruise. But this was 2-3 nights after, and she sent me a picture of the bruise on my second
She being
oldest,
whom?
Wendy.
Okay.
And had asked me about it, and I told her about the fight that they had gotten into. So that's that. And then there was no, that was correct.
Well, you told me you've received the safety plan and
Yes.
you intend on following that. Is that correct?
Yes. And I also, like, we keep in good communication with each other. Like, if for planning anything, we pretty much do that amongst ourselves. Like for the weekends or overnights, whatever, if they can get 2 of the kids, 3 of the kids, and me and Blanca have already talked about it too. We get along pretty well. But communicating things for the kids, I think we've definitely taken that upon ourselves.
Maybe to refresh your memory, you were whispering to me that somebody missed a meeting, maybe CPS and not you or something. Does that refresh what you wanted to? If not, that's fine. I just want to make sure
I
that,
had a brain fart.
okay, not a problem. I'll see if anybody else has questions for you.
We talked about a parenting time app for communication last time.
Yes.
Are you using that or how are you
Yeah.
communicating?
The app close, and then I have her phone number. At visits, like me and her will talk for a minute.
Who's
or
her?
anything. Blanca,
Blanca is,
Caleb's partner.
thank you for clarifying. Okay, is the app close working for you? Do you find it to be useful?
It definitely helps.
Okay,
Talk through anything else.
all right.
Definitely communicate.
Do you think it's useful for the court order to continue to indicate that that should be like the only way that you're communicating with Caleb? With the exception, obviously, of Blanca?
I mean, it's either or, whichever way we'd be communicating it. We don't communicate about, there's no issues with harsh words or anything like that. I think we've gotten past that point and have mentally and emotionally grown towards better decision making.
That's good, thank you for sharing that. Okay, questions for this witness, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Heiss?
Just briefly, another way of saying I want services out of my life and all of us is, are you saying I don't intend to do all of these parenting skills and keeping the kids in eyesight when we're all gone?
I would definitely continue on being the best parent that I can be to my kids. And I've learned a lot from everything and all the resources and all the people, the help, the programs. I've definitely been able to take a lot from all of it.
I appreciate that. We don't want to be in this situation again.
Oh, yeah, no.
And those skills seem so hard, like setting up incentives and getting to all of these extra appointments, but they're meant to keep this from happening again. And you intend to do some of those practices even after the case is closed?
Yes, we've gotten a pretty good schedule going. And just the thought alone of it's my kids, that definitely helps keep me up on my toes too at the same time. So I would never, ever want them to be put in any sort of similar situation than the past couple of years.
So when you say something like app close, yes or no, it could go either way. Would you be willing to check with Catherine Cobb and make sure it isn't part of the success that has relieved that relationship stress with you, maybe even from Caleb's side. So for example, considering not using that and just talking with Blanca's help, might be a backslide in your domestic violence progress.
And if that something was to just go the other way, I would just cut communication and talk to only her or talk to his mom or,
Okay,
but I don't see that being an issue.
because you're in the part of your cycle where it's working out, you know, we have holidays coming, we have different expectations of different households, and it might get stressful again. Okay, that's all, Your Honor, I have nothing further.
Thank you for your testimony. May return your seat. Thank you.
No further witnesses.
Mr. Brooks?
No, my client's indicated he does not wish to testify. I'll simply point out that any reference to outstanding tickets have all been rectified.
Thank you. Ms. Heiss, anyone you'd like us to hear from today?
No witnesses today, thank you.
All right, comments in closing, Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Your Honor. I know that the court has expressed some concerns about Mr. Miller's progress on this matter during this review period. It sounds like the parents, though, are able to continue to work together and safely get their children to and from parenting time and maintain that bond. Currently, Ms. Burgess is participating with FRP and seems to be benefiting from that. So we are requesting an additional 60-day review just to allow that service to continue. If there's a change in that, we also know how to petition the court to close out this case successfully. The parents do have an ancillary custody matter in which they can, modify orders moving forward. But I think that right now things are in a decent place. But I would just like to also bring back Ms. Angelique Cruz, her comment about the reasons that the children came into care and allowing for that time during the school year to just monitor the success of the children in their academic schooling. So with that, I would just ask for a 60-day review. Thank you.
Mr. McFarland?
Well, Your Honor, the test is not whether we have perfect parents. The test is, I think the goal is there a risk of harm to these children if this case were closed? We've heard from the experts, and that's been a negative. They don't believe there's a reasonable risk of harm to these children if this case were closed today. I think my client has matured an awful lot in the beginning of this case, and that the court, guardian ad litem, have asked some very important questions of my client. What happens if this case were closed? What it would look like? And she's given some well thought out, intelligent answers. I think she has it under control. It sounds as though both parents now are able to effectively communicate. Father's seems to have his issues, at least as reported by the experts, under control. So I don't see an issue if this case were to be closed. I think my client has benefited from services enough for closure, and the test reasonable risk of harm to the kids if it were closed. I don't think there would be any. I guess just one last issue is we always tend to perhaps try to keep the case open and maybe micromanage, but I think we've done the task that needs to be accomplished here. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
Your Honor, in late July, there was a mediation agreement reviewed and approved by all interested parties in this case, which has been signed by all the parties, including my client. 3 times this morning, the issue of risk to the children being returned home has come up. 3 different sources, and all 3 sources have said there's no risk to these children being back home where they are. In fact, they're already home, have been for some time. I think we're at a level of acceptable equilibrium in this case where we've done our job and we should bow out. And that's what I'm suggesting.
Ms. Heiss?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I think that the case staying open would benefit mom through the FRP program, but also, I don't know that these tickets for dad and changing jobs affects his parenting. Obviously, he doesn't have income now. We've got contempt of courts for failing to pay and late fees on top of things, and then they suspend his license so he can't use that as a money-making. I mean, it's a real problem that we're all aware of, how the consequence of a driving conviction or problem is more driving problem, which prevents employment. But I don't know that that relates to parenting, except that, I think September 3rd, we've got Dad's got a lot of his tickets set for contempt of court hearings, pre-trials on the new driving while license suspended seconds here in Lenawee County. So I think that might change things. Hopefully they don't use increased fines, incarceration, all those kinds of things. It'll just set the family back, but I don't know that it reflects on his parenting, got to get employed. So I think that we're overlooking a little bit of what we can do to help him in this case and reduce the risk of harm to the kids during his visits. I think that because we focus so much on mom and getting the case closed for the family, that we overlook what we could do to help the dad. Lots of strengths, and I do continue to support the agency that another review period would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. The court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's review hearing. It was also a permanency planning hearing, but there's no question that reunification is the appropriate goal. Children are placed with mother under the supervision of the department and the court. It continues to be the safest and least restrictive arrangement for them. She is doing well, focusing on her services, working with FRP services and our caseworker, and that those services do need to continue. They need the jurisdiction of court to continue. And given some of the reports that we've heard, as well as the continued changes that are happening with this family, I think it's important that the court retain jurisdiction for another report period and to support her and Mr. Miller and the children in the services that they're currently in, to make their way through some of those things that are happening, perhaps quite naturally, as a result of transitioning 5 children into the home of a single parent. So leave that in place. I would like to see Mr. Miller engage with Tranquil Parenting and some of his services. So Mr. Miller, will look for you to do some of those things in the next report period. It speaks very well for you that Ms. Heiss was able to remark on some of your skill sets as parents. So we'll continue to let you focus on those in the next report period and get back on the wagon, frankly, on some of your other services so that you can continue to be the best parent that you can for your kids. Please and thank you. And we'll have our next report and review hearing on November 19th at 3:00 p.m. The reasonable efforts towards the goal of reunification were made during this report period, thanks to Ms. Cruz, and Ms. Heiss continues to meet her obligations as well. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Unless there's any questions, that's all for today. Thank you for all the updates. You did all the heavy lifting, so really the findings are not too much for me today. And we'll see you in November.